Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Half a Clue. This week, Blake was unable to join us for this episode. So I am your host, Miles, and I am joined today by...
Ron. Hi, I'm back.
And Jason.
Yeah, and this week we are going to be talking about a cult classic film, The Warriors. Many people have seen it in passing. It's been memed to death. It's just an overall fun movie. So let's get this kicked off by Ron. Take us away with some history on this.
All right, so today we're stepping into the gritty streets of 1970s New York City in The Warriors, a cult classic that blends stylish action, tense thrills, and unforgettable characters. Directed by Walter Hill, this film takes us on a wild ride as a gang of street warriors is framed for a murder they didn't commit, setting off a fight for survival through a hostile urban landscape. With its distinctive style and pulse-pounding soundtrack and themes of loyalty, unity, and survival, The Warriors has earned its place as a defining film of the 1970s. So, grab your baseball bat, tighten your sneakers, and get ready to run through the night as we break down The Warriors.
Hell yeah.
Can you dig it?
I can. Indeed, I can. You know, they say Cyrus is the most, what do they say? He's like the real deal.
He's like the one.
Yeah. What do they...
I forget what they say, but it's definitely a lot of kind of, they make him out to be like this big, almost religious figure within their culture.
He's like the messianic gang leader. Like, they're like, he's the real one, man. He's the real deal. Like, he's the Lisan al-Gaib.
Actually, that's a pretty good way to put it. He's like the Lisan al-Gaib. Yeah. So is this a better version of Dune?
Well, let me...
leave your answers in the comments.
Yeah, the Warriors are Dune. They're very comparable. Let me break down the plot really quick, which is pretty much exactly what I said in the opening. It's a very simple, stripped down plot, which is kind of what really is one of the highlights of this movie.
Kind of great.
Yeah, it's the basic idea of just the gang that is now trying to fight its way back home, going through the urban jungle, fighting off like all other gangs. They don't have any weapons. It's only 9 of them. And the entire city of, I think the tagline for the movie, which, I should have remembered that. But it's a great thing. It just summarizes it so well. One of the best taglines. But so.
I should have remembered it too because it was in the trailer. Because we watched the trailer the other night after we watched the movie.
Great trailer for being an old trailer. A lot of times old trailers suck, but a good one.
One of the reasons why I like watching the old trailers is because it actually gives you a little bit of insight into how the film was being marketed at the time kind of like the thoughts surrounding the film at the time, which I think is always pretty interesting.
Yeah. But when we watched like the Graduate trailer, you remember that? It was like the whole
terrible.
movie. It showed everything from the opening shot to the fucking climax. I'm just like, this sucks. Trailers still do that.
A trailer
these
for
days,
a Christopher Nolan film?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so there's a couple taglines, but this is probably the best one. These are the armies of the night. They are 100,000 strong. They outnumber the cops 5-1. They could run New York City. Tonight, they're all out to get the Warriors.
Hell yeah, dude.
That's a great one. So basically, there is, like we mentioned, a messianic figure, the gang leader, the charismatic leader of the Gramercy riffs.
The Gramercy riffs.
The Gramercy riffs.
Man, I can't say Gramercy.
I'm struggling to read it. I'm like, why can't I say it? The biggest and most powerful gang in New York City at the time. It's led by Cyrus. Cyrus proposes a radical idea. The gangs should unite and take over the city. So he gathers all the other gangs and emissaries from all of them from the entire city to just one spot in Riverside Park. However, before he can finish convincing everybody, although he's really got everyone riled up at this point, he is shot and killed by Luther, who then frames the Warriors for the murder. The chaos ensues. The Warriors are blamed for Cyrus's death, and they must make their way back to Coney Island. And that's essentially it, really.
It's important to note that they don't know that they've been framed until like halfway through their trip.
Oh, yeah.
back.
Yeah.
They just think they're just running through enemy territory, which they are.
Yeah, because up until this point in the film, basically on their way there and supposedly on the way back, there was a massive kind of like truce between all these major gangs, right? So you could kind of freely travel through these territories. And they were like, oh, shit, well, with Cyrus dead, is the truth still on, right? And that was the question that they were asking. And so,
well, there's the one guy who basically knew they were being framed, right? The guy who saw Luther.
But he didn't necessarily know that they were being framed, but he knew that Luther was the one who did it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, no, the other guy who knew, what's his name?
Cleon,
the
warlord
taken out before Swan.
He got taken out before he was able to get out of the event, so he wasn't able to pass that information back.
It was them. The warriors did it. They killed Cyrus.
And then
that guy's awesome. That guy's like.
This was his
he's
first
on something for sure.
Yeah.
This was his first film. This is his debut, which is crazy.
He's been in a lot of shit too. Not a whole lot of people from this movie made it out, except for James Remar, Harry in fucking Dexter, dude.
I know. We were gonna troll Blake about that. Get on him because he always seems to find a way to bring up Dexter. So let's do it without him this time.
One of the times that he could have actually brought it up.
Exactly. Yeah.
Anyway, do you guys want to start off with your initial impressions? Have you seen this movie before, Miles?
So, yeah, I've seen this movie a few times. I've always thought that it's one of my favorite dystopian films set in New York.
Is it dystopian, though, or is it just New York in the 70s?
I mean, honestly, yeah.
Both, yes.
Both, yes. I mean, was New York in the 70s a dystopia?
I mean, it kind of was.
Yeah.
And I think we can also dive into that more when we talk about like the setting and the theme of it.
Oh, yeah.
But they definitely take that idea of New York City in the 70s and I think what people were feeling and elevated it even further, which, And then I think it gets piggybacked later with other films, but this was definitely kind of the vibe. It feels like what New York was like at the time.
Yeah. They play up like the biggest concerns that people had for New York.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. But other than that, I really enjoyed the film, especially aesthetically. I thought that it was aesthetically a beautiful looking film.
Yeah.
Just from the designs to just the entire kind of narrative arc of the movie. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Miles. Jason?
I'd seen this before. I'd seen it, I think, twice prior. I played the game when I was a kid. Rockstar made a Warriors game, and I fucking loved it, and that inspired me to watch the movie, rent it from Blockbuster or whatever. Then I saw it when I was probably like 17, 18 again, and I haven't seen it since. But I always loved it. This movie's, the way I describe it is quaint. It's a little dated, but it's got a lot of style, and it's just a lot of fun, even though there's...
I think that's why it's kind of a cult classic instead of just a classic, right? Yeah. Because it does have a lot of those elements where it's like, does this hit all the marks of being an excellent film? It's tough.
It hits a lot of them.
It hits a lot of them. But
it does feel dated in some ways.
Yeah. We'll get into that.
Yeah.
But yeah.
But I still love it. I think it's just a fun movie to watch.
This is probably my, I want to say, maybe second or third time seeing it. I think, yeah. But I don't know. I'm a big fan. I liked it from right away. I'd heard a lot of people mention it. I'd heard the quote, Warriors. And I was like, where's that from? I think I heard it in a song. I don't remember what rap song it is, but kind of opens with that. They're like a callback to it. And then I looked it up. I saw it, and I totally loved it. I love the overall, again, the feeling, the vibe of it is so contagious and fun that it just feels like one of those movies you can kind of just throw on and just have a great time.
See, that's how you know if I'm getting pretty drunk is if I grab some beer bottles and I start doing the Warriors thing.
You did that the other night, and then you dropped the bottles.
Oh yeah.
Yes, he uses the mini Coke bottles.
Yeah, see, they're more effective. Yeah.
Okay, so really quick, we should also mention there are two cuts of this movie. There's the theatrical cut and the director's cut. So the film was so basically the director who, oh shit, I forgot his name already.
Walter Hill.
Walter Hill. He kind of wanted he said he mentioned that he took comic book inspiration a lot in the making of this movie, which you can kind of see from the heightened saturation and momentum, even the side swipe panels, the editing where kind of just transitioning between scenes and stuff. But he took that to the next level in the director's cut, where there's actual comic book panels that kind of move or freeze frame between scenes and stuff. And apparently it's a much slowed down film. The pace is like, taken down, and where it's a little bit more thought provoking, essentially, I guess, where like they kind of take deep more into like the psychological aspect of what's happening to these characters. I have not seen the director's cut, but I have heard mostly negative reviews, to be honest. So I don't know.
I didn't even know there was a director's cut until Ron just told me about it. Yeah, like 10 minutes ago.
I am curious to watch it just because I am always like interested to see like a director's like intent, you know? And but I've heard a lot of people criticize it, and it doesn't sound super appealing. But I don't know. I think it might be worth a shot someday.
Yeah, it's probably worth a watch.
Yeah, maybe next time I watch it, I'll watch the director's cut. Yeah. Just like get some variety out of it. Yeah.
All right, so let's talk about some of the overall themes, I guess, that we're getting into this movie. There's the pride, like from young people to the gangs. There's like the urban culture, what was happening throughout New York City at the time. Again, it's set in New York City, like we mentioned. It was where New York in the 70s was known for being like really kind of a hellscape. There's a lot of like gang activities and violence and stuff that was going on around, and so there's a lot of that kind of emerged from this. There's other films near that time that had like similar vibes to it as well. Not too long after this, like Escape from New York, there's other movies I can't think of right now. French Connection. They're like Death Wish was before this and stuff, where it was like a lot of people kind of taking power into their own hands. Do you guys feel any of that? Do you guys see any relevance or any themes specifically?
Honestly, I see a lot more connection with A Clockwork Orange.
Strangely
enough.
Yeah, the hi-hats, that gang.
Yeah,
Very
but also
Clockwork.
the other like gang stuff that's going on, right? The good old ultra violence.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I feel like
Ajax would have fit right in Clockwork Orange.
Oh yeah.
He would have loved it.
I feel like there was a lot of kind of inspiration that did come from A Clockwork Orange and went into this film.
Probably,
especially with like the over the top exaggeration of the gang clothes and stuff like that. But that's something people are really concerned about. It's like, hey, yeah, you got kids who are all dressed the same, roaming the street, beating people up, stealing stuff. It's like, what do you do about it, right?
Yeah.
Because they even mentioned, oh yeah, we've got, our youth officer. And they're like, oh, well, they were talking to the orphans and they're like, well, oh yeah, you're probably just so bad that like, they don't even like, they're scared to deal with you. Like, because they're trying to butter them up, but it's really like, no, they're just like nothing and nothing to be worried about.
I also kind of see a lot of like, there is order in the chaos. Like these young people are like growing up in this city that is so chaotic and crazy that they kind of start forming their own society within it, right? They try to like make structure out of this city that's like rotting, where they're like, they have ranks, they have like, different customs and ideas, they're trying to like.
Well, and then also the rules in between the groups, right? Because culturally, the way that they connect in between these disparate groups that don't really know each other, it's like, hey, they've got rules like, hey, if you walk onto this neighborhood, right?
Yeah.
Like,
take your colors off.
Yeah, you got to do this stuff, right? And like the rules for like, okay, if you're going to pass through, this is what you got to be doing.
No parlay,
Yeah.
A parlaying right now.
Yeah, I think that's actually, the conversation that they have with the orphans, even though it's the most irrelevant of the gangs, you could say.
Yeah.
I think is the most important for the film.
Yeah.
Right. Because you really get to see a deeper level of what the interactions actually look like.
Yeah.
And also the power dynamics in between these groups of people, right? Where it's like, okay, this is a fairly well-known gang from Coney Island walking through this neighborhood. And it's like, hey, they aren't going to couch out to this little group of pumps.
Weren't even invited to like the gang summit.
No, I agree with that, because I feel like there's a quote I heard or something that's like basically the most dangerous of men are the weakest, where it's like they're either cowardice or like they're like, they're scared or whatever, they're vulnerable, and so they kind of feel like they have to lash out more. And I think you see that with like Luther and with the orphans, like you're saying, where they they're a little bit more edgy around these people because you don't really know what they're gonna do. They could be try to be cool, but they are also, the warriors are in a very vulnerable state where they could have been overrun by these dudes, these bunch of like nobodies in matching green t-shirts.
Yeah.
I like how they're just like wearing jeans. And
Yeah,
a t-shirt.
they just have like
Orphans like
stenciled on,
like
they
Sharpied
spray
on.
painted themselves.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, man, we're tough. The orphans. And it's like,
Yeah, we
okay,
throw down
thanks, man.
too. And then just what was her name? Egging them on.
Mercy.
Mercy, yeah, because she just ends up like I don't know what her deal was, but it was like
She is a fascinating character.
yeah,
I think
because it's like she just wanted to be surrounded by power. It seemed like right,
yeah.
and so she flocked within her community and her neighborhood to the orphans because they're the ones with the power, as
something,
limited as
right?
it
Their
could
turf.
be,
Yeah.
right? But then when people come along and they challenge that, she's like, "No, you know what? I'm done with these losers. I'm gonna go with you guys,
So,
right?"
yeah, these guys got something going on. She definitely seems like she clings to them, which I guess we could ask, like, why do you think she really does want to follow the orphans? Even though right now they're like in a super dangerous situation, she chooses to go with them, and I think it kind of goes with her, like the theme of like escape, right?
Yeah.
Like she wants to, again, and there's chaos, and she's like, these guys have something, whatever it is, that spark that is gonna actually make them matter or big or something, right?
She has that line later on in the film where she says, like, I want something now,
Yeah.
and I think that just sums up her character perfectly. Like, if she sees an opportunity, she's gonna jump at it because she's already in such a low spot. Like,
Yeah.
why not?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of these guys have the sense of like they may not be alive tomorrow, and a lot of dudes die. There's a lot of warriors that get slowly picked off throughout the movie.
Yeah, I think in total 3 of them die.
Yeah.
One
Well,
gets arrested.
Ajax gets arrested. There's that one dude who just gets ran over by a fucking train.
Yeah, Fox.
Which like honestly, for some reason, I thought for the longest time, like, oh, he gets pushed into the track. They don't really show that that's the track that the train went over, and that he would pop up like again later. Nope, he's just dead.
He's dead.
So that's a funny thing is the actor who plays Fox is also the same actor who played Windows in The Thing. I don't remember that guy, but he had a lot of like problems on set with director Walter Hill. They were kind of butting heads a lot. Apparently, he was supposed to have a larger, expanded role. He was supposed to be the love interest of Mercy, but it just wasn't working out. Like the chemistry wasn't there. They're really running and gunning this movie, like literally and figuratively. And so then things kept kind of getting switched up, and he wasn't happy about it. So then they decided just to kill him off, and he didn't even show up to set. So that's why like you don't see his face in that final
it's a stunt
conflict.
double.
Yeah, they have a double that's like running down the stairs and getting thrown in front of the train. That's not him at all. He was just gone. He was like, I'm out of here.
Huh.
So
Well, that kind of makes sense though, because they were kind of building him up as the love interest during the first like part of the film.
a little bit. Yeah,
Yeah.
it kind of, and then it doesn't seem to go anywhere.
Yeah.
Really. But she had great chemistry with the actor who played Swan. And so they expanded on that, and it feels a lot more natural, even though he's like clearly very rough around the edges, and so is she. But like, she's not really like, it's not like a romantic thing at all. Like, really, they don't really linger on it too much. Like, they have little moments like in the
subway.
Yeah, that's probably the most we get. But he kind of shows it more through his actions, like giving her the corsage. Like
I hate seeing things go to waste.
So do you think that Swan was actually supposed to be in the scene with the Lizzies then originally? And, before he kind of got split off to go do that stuff.
Maybe.
Because obviously what happened is the scene like where he's actually with Mercy all that time was originally not supposed to be him.
Yeah, that probably would have been Fox, right?
Yeah. So do you think that they kind of recut it so that would happen? Or do you think that Swan was supposed to make it towards the end originally? I don't know.
I mean, I think the other guys, I forget their names, but the dudes who were with the Lizzies, they were supposed to die. I don't know if it was that scene specifically, but it kind of makes sense that they would have died there.
Yeah.
But they were so charismatic and they liked them so much that they decided to keep them around. Which I think was a great choice because they were probably the most notable warriors other than like Ajax and Swan, really.
Yeah.
So like, I don't know, but I love that whole scene in itself, but we can get to that later a little bit.
Yeah.
But, So yeah, let's go into like so this movie is actually loosely based off of a Greek myth. There's a book that it based itself off of as well. But
I was thinking that. I was like, is this based off of some sort of like I had the Odyssey in my head, but I know it's probably not the Odyssey.
No, it does take some elements from the Odyssey, but it's there's a story, I think it's written by Xenophon, where these Greek mercenaries were fighting with the Persians, and they're who's actually the general's name was Cyrus, who dies in battle, and then now these mercenaries are stuck deep in enemy territory and have to find their way back home. So it's a very basic outline of it, but they took that really and kind of ran with it. The book is also it's much more like tragic and like deeply personal. It's more really about like gang life and what it's like being a young person. The characters are all like much younger and shit. But yeah, no, it's I think the book is called Anabasis. I don't know. I'm terrible at reading. But yeah, it's an interesting parallel there. But I think they do definitely add some Odyssey elements into it with like the Lizzies kind of being like the sirens. You know?
Yeah.
It's like they step away. Like even that whole section, I like how
that
they
whole
frame
section.
it.
Everyone's just trying to get laid.
Yeah,
like there's just like a moment in this film. It's like 10 or 15 minutes where everyone's just trying to get laid.
Ajax gets picked off because he chooses to go with stick around.
Yep,
with the lady.
And I will say it's unfortunate that we had all seen this movie before, because I really did want to ask somebody the question, like, hey, did you see that coming? Like that the Lizzies were definitely just going to like try to cut these guys.
Oh yeah.
Like,
I mean, well, I don't know.
it was like obvious to me, but like, I don't remember if it was obvious the first time I saw it.
If only Blake was here.
I know, right?
Damn it, Blake.
We could have like a new input on it, a fresh look. Yeah. Oh, wow.
I feel like they do frame it. It is kind of obvious, right? I mean, even the dude who doesn't partake, like he's kind of like
Rembrandt. Yeah,
he's like, we should get the hell out of here, like which is like it just doesn't make any sense why they would stop. And same with Ajax, and Ajax is the one that really takes the hit, right?
Yeah,
during his whole scene. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. You guys want to talk about the characters themselves? Like the character of Ajax, he's very likable. He's got a lot of charisma.
He's the best part of the movie.
He's fun. He seems like the purest, like gangster, I guess, or like guy there.
He's a big old asshole, though.
Yes,
yeah. He's also the most intense, and I think also the most self-conscious about his weakness out of all of them. Right? He puts on a lot of machismo or bravado or whatever you call it, and I think that he really is more scared than anybody out of the group. Like when he's going through the stuff, like he
I
puts
don't
on
know
a brave
about
face,
that,
but he also makes really dumb choices. Like
yes, he makes dumb choices. Like thank God Swan took over as warlord, because Ajax would have been a nightmare.
No, he would have just tried to crack heads the whole way down, right? They wouldn't have gotten 3 blocks.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. He chose when to like run, when to fight, when to like figure things out. Swan, I mean. And Ajax was always like, let's just fucking fight people. Let's just fight our way through. And he's like, no, we got to be smart about this.
I love the scene where they're running from the baseball Furies, and he's running with Cowboy. And Cowboy's like, I can't go on. He's like, thank God. I'm going to shove that bat up your ass and turn you into a popsicle stick.
So who do you think has the best performance in the movie?
I got to go with Swan.
I got to say Ajax. I think he's the fucking best. I love when he gets arrested. There is that moment on his face, and I think it's like a really good performance from him, where he does look just like a scared, cowering kid.
That one scene specifically, yes, he did a brilliant performance there. But overall, it's a pretty low bar to jump over to be the best performance in this film. One of my key complaints about this film, right?
The acting?
The acting is not very good.
Yeah. I kind of disagree.
It's very bland, very flat. There is spikes of emotion sometimes, but like even when Cyrus is like, "Can you dig it?"
Dude, I disagree with you. I fucking love Cyrus.
I don't know.
I was gonna say, I think Roger Hill plays Cyrus. I think he does such a great job in a very, very short amount of time because they build him up. Like, Cyrus is this crazy figure. He's amazing, and he gets like that, like, I don't know, minute, 2 minutes to like talk, and you kind of feel it. You're like, I get why everyone would be behind this dude.
Like, dude, I can dig it.
Yeah. He's like, our turf, our insignificant turf.
I also really like the guy who takes over for Cyrus. I forget his name, but that guy speaks with his whole mouth all the time.
Authority.
Yes.
Silent. Like you could just see him being like an amazing number 2 for Cyrus. And then now that he takes over, he's on a one-track mind. But also shout out to David Patrick Kelly as Luther. I mean, he's so good as this this little
skeevy,
bubbling,
little whiny
pot of it's greasy little like he's gross. He's a terrible person. I like the little moments where they're like just terrorizing the city on their way, like they're hassling that poor shopkeeper girl, just like taking like the snacks and stuff. She's like, "Hey, what about the money you owe?" He's like, "What money?" Like he's just like I think he fits this film so perfectly. Where I was gonna say, I think a lot of the performances are actually extra hammy in a lot of ways, and I think it works perfectly because, like, again, a lot of the style, the editing, very fast paced and elevated. And I think it fits very well for this kind of film. But they're mostly were unknowns at the time. That's what they wanted. And I think it works.
But I don't know. I just wasn't feeling the acting. Like I love this film. I always thought that the acting was a little bit campy or a little bit bland in a lot of places, and it never really seemed to match the tone that the film was going for. But maybe that's just my interpretation. It probably is.
The worst acting in the movie is in the beginning during the opening credits, where they're doing those like reverse shot of like them basically just explaining what's happening.
What do you think about Cyrus?
Yeah, I don't know, man.
He's the one and only.
Yeah. But I think it really hones in on better performances as the movie goes on, specifically with Swan, Ajax, even Mercy. I think she was great.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I mean, so like you were saying that they filmed this kind of on the fly. I'm assuming that they might have filmed it in order a little bit.
It sounds like they did. They were doing it chronologically. There's a whole thing about the behind the scenes of making this movie was very chaotic. It was essentially them really running around the streets of New York. They were dealing with the weather, the rain, and real gangs that were also kind of interfering and overlapping. But yeah, we'll get more into that a little bit later. But yes, it was. I think they did shoot it chronologically, though.
Yeah, so if they're shooting it chronologically, that does make sense. That naturally the acting and kind of the people get more into their roles over time.
Yeah.
Especially, some of the bit players in the Warriors and then some of the other guys.
There's a growing intensity as it goes on, which works really well, I think. Apparently, the actor who was supposed to play Cyrus initially was a real-life gang member that lived in New York who apparently disappeared right before they had to shoot a scene.
Oh, shit.
And he's never been seen or heard from again. So no one really knows what happened to him. Hopefully he's okay, I guess. But it's, that's one of the little weird mysteries that came with this movie. All right, so let's get into the costumes and just the overall aesthetics of this movie.
That's the highlight. Yeah,
absolutely. I agree. I think that's its strongest point. They leaned into it a lot, and it works so well. So what do you guys think?
So who was your favorite gang?
My favorite gang is the Baseball Furies.
Baseball Furies.
They're so
love
cool.
them. They're the ones that stuck out to me when I watched this as a kid. I just think they're so fucking badass.
I always really liked the roller skating jock guys.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like it was just so like weird. Like their outfits all of them were unique because they basically were like, oh yeah, we're going to wear a striped like rugby shirt with overalls and roller skates.
That's the best fight scene in the movie.
Yes, it is.
In that bathroom.
I agree. It's like most of the fight scenes, they're very fun, but they're definitely not the best choreographed.
Yeah.
You can tell it had that like, guys, we have to go. Like sun's coming up, we got to fight right now. So with the fight with the Baseball Furies, apparently Walter Hill said that he wanted to shoot it like a Kurosawa movie. And I don't know what the hell he's talking about because I don't see that like at all. Really? I mean, I kind of like I don't know. Like you want, but it's fun though, and I think the editing helps it a lot because I think the editing is very important in this movie. It keeps the pace moving, especially with the intercutting scene. Like right away, it starts off with that like slow, like kind of synth beat over like the wheel, and then it just jumps right into it, and then the whole pace of the movie is like pretty much nonstop, and it works so well.
Yeah. So who's your favorite gang?
That's hard to say. I think I think the like Luther's gang. I forget what they're called.
Rogues.
The Rogues. Just because they were. They felt like an elevated version of the Orphans, where it's like they're kind of maybe they are just some nobodies, but they're just also so crazy and tenacious. I don't know.
Yeah, they seemed like a motorcycle gang, maybe, because they had like the hats and like the jackets and stuff.
Yeah,
but and they were definitely the foils to the Warriors. You could tell like throughout the film, like there was definitely they knew each other. These are gangs
probably
that had
bad blood between them.
Yeah, bad blood. But like their car, I think it was an excellent prop design right there.
It really feels like a throwback to like the classic like 50s like greasers kind of thing.
Yeah,
which I think is really fun. And I don't know, Luther's really the only one that stands out, but he has so much energy and charisma to him that it's like that's all we really need, really, to kind of get what they're about. It's really fun.
I don't know why people would follow somebody like Luther though.
No, I mean, I think it's like part of it is like, the gang style where it's like he probably clawed his way to the top, however mischievous and like violent way he did, like many gangs, and then he just stayed there because it's like everyone's kind of scared of him. Like you can tell his gang, it's like the dynamic is so different from the Warriors, where they clearly like respect Swan and they back him like when Ajax is trying to push him, and then Swan also understands like the utility of Ajax as well, right? And then it's like, meanwhile, Luther is just like, nah, like he just has this whole do-it-himself like chaotic mentality, and it's like, I don't know, you kind of see the difference of like a well-run gang and this like chaotic gang that's gonna fizzle out real quick. Like it's probably gonna get crushed like 10 minutes after the credits.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to tell because I don't think there's very many lines from any of the other rogues. I can't recall any.
There's like one line where basically the other rogue guy is like, dude, like this is a problem. Like, we got to like take care of the Warriors. Like it's a bad thing that they got away because now the Gramercy riffs are going to find out like that we did this. Like, but I think that was like the only one that I remember. Yeah.
But yeah. So getting into like the cinematography of it, strongest part of the movie, the cinematographer, he really chose early on that like they were filming in New York in the summer, which can be very rainy and wet. So his decision was like, all right, we got to show the rain at least once to then justify why we can wet the streets and have like that nice like slick, but also it adds like a real like grossness, I think, to the city. I think if I had to say, I'd imagine it takes inspiration from movies like Taxi Driver that have that like that extra nasty. There's something about like wet trash, that wet trash aesthetic where it's like it's not necessarily washing away the filth, it's just kind of spreading it around.
Also I think that just naturally it makes the lighting look more eerie because you have more reflective, surfaces. Like you can take like blacktop and kind of give it a little air of reflection, and like the sides of buildings with bricks and stuff, and it just like reflects the light a little bit better.
There's like a shot where Mercy's like walking down the street, and there's like the lights are reflecting off the pavement, and they're behind her and everything, and it's a really good looking shot, and I think it just kind of captures the exact feel that they were going for. But yeah, it's very strong, and especially again with the opening credits, there's a lot of the oversaturated kind of an extra dark, like crushing darks and like bright neon colors. Yeah. Where it makes the subway train look like they're like lit by like blue neon lights, even though it's not what they look like. And they go inside and they look like relatively normal trains, but just covered in graffiti, of course.
Yeah.
But it's a very colorful and like a vibrant city. But I don't know, it's a really fun aesthetic, I think.
Yeah. So I guess this is kind of tied to the aesthetic a little bit because it is so overarching. What did you guys think of the narrator?
Oh, she was awesome.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I love everything that she says, all the music she plays. I love all the shots of like the old school like record player, you know. I don't know. It just adds a little like I don't know, just flair to the movie that I really like.
Well, I love when like elements like that, when you add something that makes sense within the world, right? Where it's like, okay, it
is
just
a great piece
a
of
narrator
world building.
Yeah, it's not just a narrator out of nowhere talking from the sky, right?
Yeah, she's part of the underground.
Yeah, this is like, oh, like it explains like how they get information around about this stuff.
Yeah.
Like this is the station that people are listening to. You know, she's sharing hot tips. And but it also kind of explains kind of the progression of where the warriors are at and like how heavily they're being hunted throughout the film.
So originally they wanted to get Orson Welles to do like
would've
an
been
opening
sick.
narration, but they couldn't do it for various reasons. But I think they
would've been
wanted
cool,
him.
though. Yeah.
Yeah, it would have been very cool, I think. But I think it's like one of those things where it ended up much better, I think, in a way, because it kind of feels more part of this world. I think Orson Welles was kind of meant to, I think, like harken back to that classical mythology kind of feel, right? Where he's like, you know, like an ancient Greek orator who's like, you know, explaining this thing that's happening and whatever. And I think she really like just meshes better with the 70s, like, you know, DJ vibe. Like, I think it works better that way. But it would have been very interesting though to see her.
Yeah,
see her.
and I mean that's something that has been parodied in a lot of TV shows, right?
Yeah, it's
Because I mean you don't
inspirational.
notice it at first, but like there's so many TV shows that they'll have like an episode where it's like a being hunted episode, right? And they actually like do the gag where they've got the narrator on the radio, like broadcasting stuff. And I think that, you know, it shows just how influential this film has been.
Yeah, so I want to talk about the score.
I fucking love the music in this movie.
It's so good. I believe it was the first movie to use like a rock synth score, because synths were like pretty new at the time. And talking about influential, I think that's one of the biggest influential things from this movie is it's like it's really got that pounding like right away, the dun 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 dun, like score that really just pushes through the whole action of the movie. It's awesome. It's probably one of the most iconic elements in this movie.
Yeah, and I think the choice of music to accompany the score, well, to accompany, you know, the atmospheric music that they were doing was really kind of awesome. Like, especially the first song, "Nowhere to Run, Nowhere to Hide." Like, that's a good one to start it off with, because
This one's for you, and then, you know, she plays.
Yeah.
It's very fun.
Yeah, but also what I like about that is she doesn't explicitly state in her first like little I guess monologue that people are going to kill the warriors. She states they're going to kill them with that song. Right?
Yes. Yeah.
It's perfect.
Okay, so I think now we can talk about some like how movie has affected like media and stuff that's come afterwards.
Sorry,
and stuff.
I jumped the gun on that.
No, that's okay, because I think it
Yeah.
leads right into it. Again, like those synth tracks. This is 1979. The 80s, probably one of the things they're most known for is the use of like synth soundtracks and everything else. But I think like I kind of mentioned before, like Escape from New York. Have you guys ever seen it?
Yeah.
No, I have not seen that.
It's
You
a great
haven't?
one.
Okay,
I want to.
I'll put
I
that
want
on
to.
my list of movies to
Yeah, I'm down
I
to
think
watch it.
that
eventually
makes
do for the podcast.
Great companion piece for this film.
Yeah, I would say so.
It's a very similar vibe, but it takes it up even further, where it's like, all right, now New York is literally like a post-apocalyptic kind of hellscape. It's Manhattan's a giant prison. And, you know, Kurt Russell is like trying to like make his way through the city and everything, but it has like a freaking kick-ass soundtrack by John Carpenter. And it's it has the wet streets aesthetic and everything. It works very well with that. So it's like there's a lot of movies, and like I said, games, Rockstar Games making this into a thing. I think Grand Theft Auto and
it's
shit.
perfect.
It's like, you know, you can tell they really took a lot of from this movie in particular.
Was there any other things that you guys noticed, like different tropes, like the one I mentioned earlier that you've seen reused in modern media a lot, because this was a fairly original film, right? It created a lot of like the tropes.
I think it expanded some too.
Yeah.
And it definitely, kind of helped lay the groundwork for a lot of different things that, came before and after and stuff. Like a funny thing is like, I watched Yojimbo recently this week, right?
Yojimbo.
And that movie, the climax of that movie, not to spoil too much of the movie, but there's a character with a gun. He's like the only guy with the gun, and which is similar to this movie where it's like you see Luther, he has a gun, and that final standoff, Swan does exactly what Toshiro Mifune's character does, where he pulls out a knife and then just throws it right into his forearm, and he's like, ah! And I'd seen Yojimbo before, but I watched it again after this. I watched this movie and I was like, oh shit, there it is. I was like, there's the Kurosawa influence that he talked about, which is, it's so fun to still catch those like little nuggets in movies later. But yeah, I don't know, there's so many different little aspects to it that carry forward.
Well, I know one show that heavily in several different episodes kind of like gave a nod to this movie was Community, if you guys ever watched it. Oh yeah. Usually like their big like showpiece episodes that they do every season, there was at least one or two things that like linked back to this movie. Right? From like the paintball ones all the way to when they were doing like the Ass Crack Bandit investigation and it just overall very influential.
I was gonna say even movies like Blade Runner, I felt like at least took some inspiration like in the visual style, right?
Just dirty, grimy streets,
rainy, neon, like
Well, and this showed how you could make darkness kind of look good, right? Where you use minimal lighting, right? You don't even really, because it didn't really even feel like they worried about lighting the characters too much. They kind of just lit everything naturally and then tried to position the characters so that you could see them well with the camera.
They talked about how when they got onto the subways, the DP wanted to take out the lights that were in the subway because there's ugly like fluorescent lights, but they couldn't because they're literally built into the train. So they're like, all right, so he ordered extra ones that they use on the train and use those as like fills in for like the characters and everything, so you can at least kind of get some cinematic lighting.
Really?
But again, they kind of leaned into it. I think that's like probably one of the biggest strengths, right? Is they lean into, but they were just given because they didn't really have much of a choice at times. But yeah, like one of my favorite nuggets was like for the Baseball Furies fight. There's a part where they're like, running through the park and stuff, and you can kind of tell from like a upward shot of like lights that are just in the trees because they put them in there because the park at night is dark as hell. Yeah. So they just put them in there. And he was like, you might be wondering why there's lights in those trees. It's because I put them there. It's like, that's it. It was just necessity. It's really a lot of it came down to that. They're like, this is what we need. This is what we're working with. Let's just make it work.
I guess I'm wrong then. They did use lights other than just the natural lights, but it felt like they were just using the natural stuff.
But I mean, that's what they're doing. It's like, I think it's a really interesting balance of using the, quote unquote, like natural lighting that you see in New York City, but also elevating it to where it feels more like a heightened reality at the same time. It's like, it's a fun time.
Yeah. And I think costume design was also pretty influential in future movies, right? Where it's like, okay, you can make people look bold and distinct, right?
Yeah.
And, they don't necessarily need to seem real. It can be a little bit over the top.
That like opening sequence, we see a lot of other gangs that I wish we could have like seen a little bit more of, like those like purple pimp looking dudes. There's like an Asian gang. We get like a bit like brief,
like 2 seconds
of. Yeah, just see that.
I saw a screenshot of like just these guys wearing like Flintstone style like garb, and I was just like fucking cool. It's just like a small screenshot that someone like took from the massive crowd, and he's like, "Who are these? The Flintstones?" Like,
well, it's like the lady who did the outfits. We watched a special feature on the disc about that, and she's talking about basically she would go into like thrift stores and stuff like that, and if she saw 12 of an outfit, she would buy them and then turn that into a costume.
I mean, it's great because how are you gonna make any of these like gangs distinct and colorful and stand out amongst this,
Sea
army
of
of
people.
Exactly. It's really fun.
Yeah, I mean, the use of color was super important. And, really, I don't think that there was any group that didn't have a bold look to them.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, you could argue that the Warriors are the most like
Muted. Yeah.
but they are red. So like it's always easy to spot them. But they don't have like a super like I don't know, like bold style to them. But I think that's cool. I like it.
I mean, they're just like, I guess, like stereotypical Native Americans. Trying to find the right terminology, but it's fun. I think it's also what helps them, because they do have a couple different colors versus a lot of the other guys who were a little bit more monochrome, I guess. Like there's a cowboy hat, there's like the headdress that one guy's wearing and stuff. It's cool. They definitely do stand out.
I think
each
that
character.
They tried to keep it simple with like just the vests was like the main defining feature.
Yeah.
So that they could kind of outfit them with other characteristics and stuff like that. No, that's one of the reasons I did like the roller skating gang. I forget what they were called.
I don't know.
I forget as well.
Yeah.
The rollers.
Yeah. But I liked them a lot, and I appreciated them because they all had a little bit different, like distinguishing features on them, right? Because they were all wearing different
they're
shirts.
just called the punks.
The punks? Okay.
All right. I think it's interesting that director initially wanted the cast to be all Black and Hispanic cast, but the studio shot it down. They're like, no. Basically, they needed white Caucasian characters to be like really kind of the forefront and everything, which is very telling.
Annoying.
Yeah, telling of the time. But
I don't like that, but I do think that making it more diverse, right, where you do have people from all different groups instead of just like
I do like
a
that
set
as
group
well.
of ethnicities.
yeah.
Makes it a better film, but putting them as the preeminent characters, I don't like that so much.
No, I agree.
Like I keep forgetting the guy's name, but the warlord at the beginning.
Yeah.
He was awesome. I wish he was in more of the fucking film as the leader, and then Swan has to take over more near the end. But I really like that guy.
Yeah,
I agree. I think it's having the interracial gangs. Like every gang is like essentially interracial.
I think that's cool.
It does kind of help create it to this elevated reality where it's like, none of the gangs are separated by race. Like they kind of mostly are in real life.
If you look at it though, they really kind of were divided a little bit along racial lines.
Somewhat. There were some like definitely leaned more like these are all white dudes.
Yeah.
These are all like black dudes or whatever. But like, I think it kind of adds the elevatedness of where it's like, you know what, in this world, like the race doesn't seem to matter quite as much as it does like the region. I'm sure that they're from. I think
that was actually one of the defining elements of the Warriors that made them heroic. Is that a little bit was that like, hey, they seemed like the most accepting group of people, right? The most like, oh yeah, it doesn't matter who you are in this group.
They got an Italian dude. They got a couple black guys. They got white guys.
So I don't know.
They're all over. Yeah.
But in terms of like all the gangs that were there, they definitely had the most diversity.
Yeah, because I think the rogues were all white. Maybe?
I think so too.
And the punks maybe.
And the punks, and then the
baseball. Punks had one black dude. I remember.
Oh, they did.
Yeah.
Oh, did they?
Yeah, they show him very briefly at the end, and I was like, oh yeah, there's a black guy.
Okay. Baseball Furies, you couldn't really tell.
Yeah, they had makeup.
Yeah. No, it was a very interesting choice, especially for the 70s, right? Because I'm sure that was at least a little bit controversial.
I mean, it would have been controversial, I think. Just having like an all non-white cast, that would have been a pretty big deal back then because that was just not really done. But so we mentioned at the top that this is really like a cult classic film, and one of the reasons why it became like cult classic is because it got pulled from theaters pretty early on, so it didn't really get a chance. It was kind of getting some momentum, but it was so there was a big rumor going on at the time that was partly based off like real stuff that was happening where this movie it attracted gangs to go watch it.
They would all guessed.
Yeah. So gang members would go to watch it, and then in their movie theater they would run into other gangs, which would then lead into like conflicts and violence that were happening. So people were like, if you go watch this movie, you're gonna like it's gonna be
die.
Yeah, it's gonna be violent. You're gonna die and everything, which was like it was partly true, right? But probably a little more overhyped than the reality of it. But either way, the studio got spooked, so they pulled it. Which is too bad. But enough word of mouth had gone around that people were still wanted to go see it when they could, or however they could.
Do you think that they initially might have leaned into it a little bit and then it got overhyped like that and then they pulled back? Because I know that like a similar, well, maybe not similar, but have you guys ever seen the movie Dogma by Kevin Smith?
No.
So
I think I saw it on Comedy Central.
Yeah. So he actually went out to protest
Yes,
the movie.
I've seen that.
Right.
That's hilarious,
and he was actually
dude.
like interviewed on the news. Like, and I always think it's so funny because that did get pulled from theaters, right?
Did it really?
Yeah.
Dogma?
No, it got pulled from a lot of theaters because of the protests. But originally he like leaned into it to get people to go see it.
I mean, it's like they say, any publicity can be good publicity, right? So I feel like that it is. I think that it really just added to the overall mystique of this movie, where people were like, "Ooh, this is like a dangerous movie," which is kind of funny because you watch it and it's pretty goofy and like over the top a lot of the times. Like they were like, it's like violent and everything, and really the violence is not serious.
It's not that violent.
Like there's some blood, but it's usually very understated. There's like,
hey, you know what? At least the stage fighting is better than the stage fighting in Xena Warrior Princess, which I watched on your recommendation.
I did not recommend it. I just said I was watching it. All right.
Okay.
Okay.
Sorry. Just
I
wanted
still
to
like
bring
that
up.
show. I don't give a shit.
All right. So any last elements? Anything else you guys want to touch on?
I just wanted to talk about one scene because I think it's one of the most important and it's one of my favorite moments of the movie is when they're near the end on the way back to Coney and those two like couples, I think they're it looks like they're coming from prom or whatever.
Yeah.
And they sit down and they're just like staring at the Warriors. And I don't know. I thought it was a great, just like little like depiction of classes in this world.
They're interacting with decent society. And it's like you kind of, because the whole film you've seen just them interacting with other gangs.
Yeah.
So this is kind of the first time that you see them interacting with like quote unquote normal people.
And it's not even like they're fucking like staring them down or anything. Both sides just look uncomfortable. Like we do not we're from different worlds. I love Mercy. Like she tries to like fix her hair to try to look a little better. I don't know. I thought it was.
And then Swan just like puts her hand down. Like, no, you don't have to change yourself.
Yeah.
It's for a movie that doesn't really have many quiet or understated moments. I think it's definitely one of my favorites in the film too, because it's there's no word said. It's purely visual storytelling. They just four characters that just looked at each other, and so much is said just with that.
Yeah, it's
great.
I don't know. It's my favorite part of the movie, aside from the baseball furies.
No, good for bringing that up. Do we want to talk about the final scene real quick? Because I think that one's pretty important right there, just before we wrap things up, unless you had something else you wanted to talk about. No? Okay. Yeah, so the final scene out on the beach, right? Well, I guess leading up to that, too, where they're, they see the rogues following them, and they're kind of getting ready to rumble. And Mercy this time isn't so obvious about like, hey, you see those guys following you?
Yeah. You know what is obvious though is when Swan pulls out the switchblade and he like puts it like in his
to hide it.
But he's facing the rogues. Like his back is facing the rogues. They can obviously see the switchblade.
I think one of us mentioned that while we were watching the movie. Yeah. But yeah, it's and that's when you get the famous, clink, 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 warriors come out to play.
So fucking cool.
One of the best like improvised scenes, like where
that was improvised?
Yeah, they
hell yeah.
So basically the Walter Hill was like trying to figure out how to do this. He like felt kind of flat, so he asked the actor who played Luther, who's escaping me right now, but basically just to kind of come up with something. And the actor mentioned how he basically, when he was growing up, he grew up kind of in a tough neighborhood. And there was this guy who was like just always trouble that lived, and he would always like kind of mess with him. And he would taunt him by like, going outside of his window or whatever and just being like, whatever his name is. Like,
his name is... Sorry. David Patrick Kelly.
Yeah, so he'd be like, David. Like, just like, but really creepy. And like, so it always stuck with him. So then the bottle idea, apparently he just did that on a whim. He just like went out, grabbed some bottles and was like, tring, tring, tring. And then in the edit, they extended the bottles where they just like you can hear it before and it kind of keeps going. And I don't know, it's the most iconic scene in the movie for a reason. It stands out, and it's like I think a lot of the stuff in the movie, it felt very organic because it kind of was. It just just in the moment. And I think that's plays into the best strengths of this film when they're just kind of figuring shit out as they're going along. It's so good.
So I guess we should also mention the Gramercy riffs throughout this whole film have been pissed off that they can't find the Warriors.
Yeah. And the Warriors are beating everybody.
Yeah, and the Warriors are beating everybody. And it's like the Gramercy riffs guys that they've got on the ground can't even find them. They're like,
Warriors are good.
Yeah.
The best.
And they finally get a tip from somebody else who saw who shot Cyrus. So finally, after, they've made it basically all the way back, it's like, oh, wait, never mind. It's, the Warriors did nothing wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah. And they finally get the shot called off them. Right.
Yeah.
And that leads into the scene on the beach. Right.
Yeah.
Which I think is a great scene right there, right? Because you have your traditional kind of standoff between the rogues and the warriors, right? Mm-hmm. And
the leaders go at each other.
Yeah, they're like, okay, 1-on-1. Mm-hmm. And
Luther, being the little piece of shit,
he
pulls out a gun.
Yeah, he pulls out a gun, and he's like, I got this though. And it's like, and like you said earlier, Swan just throws that knife right into his hand.
We get the
and this is where you really see like Luther's true colors, because as this happens, the Gramercy riffs, all like 1,000 of them in that gang, it seems like, or at least a couple hundred.
I love the fact, just really quick,
them.
That the riffs are like the highest level of gang in the city, right?
Mm-hmm.
But they're still just like packing like hockey sticks and like chains and shit. You could tell they're just picking up shit they find in the street to like beat people up.
But I think that's also just like a cultural thing with these gangs. They don't like using like weapons. They
don't like using guns, right?
They're brawlers.
It's
right?
It's one thing I like. It's, you kind of have to accept it early on that like they do have a bit of like where they're all going into the city. They're all supposed to be going in unarmed, so that kind of really helps explain why the Warriors wouldn't have any other weapons on them or even like a gun or something. Makes sense. There's a truce, and why most of the gangs would also be unarmed. But then there's like a bit of that, like where the baseball furies, they have the baseball bats, and a lot of these other guys that have just knives and like other kinds of weapons like that. And it's a nice thing because it's, you get the vibe that in this reality, it's like using a gun seems to be dishonorable.
Yeah. Because the
like
only other person that you see use a gun in the film
is Luther.
No, Luther, and then the girl in the
the Lizzies,
the Lizzies.
The Lizzies.
Right.
Yeah.
So
one of them has a gun. These chicks are packing. And it's and they're trying to be like sneaky. So it's
dude, I'm sorry, that Lizzie scene is so hilarious. Dude, that slow-mo shot of I forget who it is, but just hammers one of the Lizzies with a fucking chair. It just so
breaks
funny.
it on her head. It's so good. Yeah, they talk about how they were like, they didn't want to. They just fighting them like they would like anybody else. They're just straight up punching and throwing the chicks around. Like it's not like, oh, we got to fight, girl. Like no, they're just like we're fighting, equal hands, right?
Yeah. Like diverse, right? Like if you're in the game, you're in the game, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, and I don't know. I think that it ends on a very good ending, right? Because it just wraps it up. And because Cyrus's replacement, what was his name?
I forget his name.
walks up.
Sunglasses guy.
Yeah, and Swan's like, "You still looking for us?" And he's like, "No, you're good. We got who we need."
Yeah.
You know, and it's like they basically just like let go. They get let go.
Yeah, the
And
Warriors have
everybody's
just been
like, yeah.
elevated to like legend status.
Exactly.
Like every other gang in the city's gonna know.
You would think like the Warriors would be pissed, but really it's just like, yeah, we just fucking proved ourselves. And the Riffs took note, right?
Yeah.
We just said it, but you Warriors are pretty good.
Yeah,
the best.
The best. And also fucking awesome, dude.
the Warriors probably have the strongest territory at that point too, because they
Coney
control
Island, yeah.
Coney Island, right? You know,
Yeah.
and you know, they don't have to fight for ground for territory like the rest of the guys do, and they're a little bit disconnected from all these other gangs, so they've kind of made their name more broadly known across like the rest of New York.
And I think they mentioned they have like a couple hundred gang members like as well. So they're no joke, right? Even then, but like yeah. They cut out a scene in the opening where it was Cleo, the main their leader guy, who is speaking to them, and it's in daytime, and he's like talking to each of the 9 members. And or 8 guys that go with him, and he's like, "You've all been chosen, you know, for your specific like skills or whatever." Which I'm glad they cut out, because again, it just kind of jumps right into the action, and it's kind of told more through flashback.
But also, I think that's kind of cool, like having that, just knowing that exists, and it's like when you really think about it, when they're going to this, it's like, okay, these are the 9 like top members, right?
Yeah.
Except Rembrandt. Rembrandt is like
he's the tagger.
Yeah.
It delves into it in the game. He's like very he's one of the newest members, and he's much more timid. You
He's
obviously
the
see that in
artsy
the
one,
movie.
you know?
They brought him because like, you know, just spray paint shit every once in a while. Like that's his role.
He can do a W, you know, unlike any other.
He's the only literate one.
Yeah, but the rest of them, they're all like brawlers, right?
Yeah.
Mostly, yeah. But like, I like how Ajax is like the muscle, which again, even the name Ajax is a callback to, it's not the Odyssey, it's the one before the Odyssey, but
Iliad?
The Iliad, yeah. The character of Ajax is like this big mighty warrior and stuff.
Oh, I thought it was a callback to like the soap.
Yeah, the cleaner.
Yeah,
he cleans out. But yeah, okay. Any wrap up, guys? Final thoughts about this movie? It's a great movie.
I think we kind of said all that needs to be said.
Yeah.
I said, one of the greatest movies about dystopian New York that there is.
Possible dystopian New York.
Possible dystopian New York.
Yeah, I love this movie. It's always fun to watch. Highly recommend.
Yeah.
Recommended it. If you like this one, you'll probably like Escape from New York. Or if you like Escape from New York, you'll probably like this one.
I need to watch that soon.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, watch. It's good. There's a lot of good in here. I am kind of curious of Walter Hill's other movies. I know he did a couple out of this. He seems to like work with like unknown actors and stuff. So I want to get into it more. But I know he stepped more into like a producer role later on. So yeah, okay.
Well, that is very cool. I guess. Do you want to tell us what movie you have picked for us for next week, Ron?
Is it my choice or those Blake's?
You were here, so it's your choice.
Oh shit!
Wait, was it Blake's choice?
I think
I
it
don't
is.
know.
I think it's technically Blake's.
Well, okay. Should we get him like on the speakerphone? Yeah. Here.
Pause, pause.
Here, give us a second.
I bet you he's asleep.
Okay, so for this week's pick, or next week's pick, Blake is going to be choosing, so we got him on the phone right now.
Special caller.
Yeah, special call-in Blake. How's it going,
listener,
Blake?
First time caller.
This is just like the time I was on Jeopardy.
You were on Jeopardy?
Wait, is that not Jeopardy? Well, no, it was an ill attempt at a joke.
Oh my
Is
god!
Jeopardy the one you can phone a friend?
No, that was
that's
Who Wants to Be a Millionaire.
Yeah.
Oh, this is like that time I was on Who Wants to Be a Billionaire.
Oh my god!
It's Millionaire.
I lost it all for them.
Okay.
Okay, so Blake,
That
what
tracked.
is your pick for next week?
Is that a philosophical question?
No, just fucking say what movie you picked.
What movie do you want to watch?
Well, since we watched Matchstick Men last week, it got me into a real Nicolas Cage mood. and I want to watch and talk about Leaving Las Vegas.
Oh,
Leaving
okay.
Las Vegas. Okay.
I've never seen that one.
It's a very, what's the word? Feel good movie. It's very,
Yeah.
very feel good, makes you happy, makes you, like, yes, this guy.
Every time you say that, Blake, I know it's going to be the exact opposite.
Yeah, who could have guessed? Blake just picked one of the most miserable movies ever to exist.
I don't just like miserable movies. That's a common misconception about me.
I don't think it is.
Okay, well, Leaving Las Vegas. That sounds like a fun one. Well, I can't wait to talk about that one. No, honestly, though, I've never seen it. I am looking forward to watching it. So,
It's a great movie. I'm excited to watch it again.
Yeah, should be fun. Well,
fun might not be the right word. But
it'll be
should
fun talking about it.
yes.
It should be fun talking about it, yes.
Oh,
Maybe.
okay.
Who knows?
Well, hey,
All
Blake.
right, well, thank you for including me. Sorry, audience. I know I'm your favorite. I'm sorry that I wasn't there today. Time escaped me.
Man, I hope this is like one of our best performing videos.
Yeah.
ever.
I know, right?
Maybe it will be. Who knows?
Okay.
All right, well,
Thanks for
bye,
calling
everyone.
in.
Of course.
Well,
Bye.
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 Okay, well, everybody, thank you for listening. We hope you enjoyed this episode. Please subscribe if you want to watch more of our content.
Yeah, and follow along.
Yeah, and follow along. And also, if you have suggestions or alternate interpretations of things that we said, please just write about them in the comments. We read all the comments, and we do appreciate the fan interaction.
Yeah, we scour through all three of them. And it's always nice. No, but legitimately, though, like when you guys leave a comment, it really does mean a lot.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
really nice when somebody like takes the time to say something.
Yeah, and it's just it's good because we like hearing what you have to think as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Goodbye.
Goodbye, farewell. We'll see you all next week.
Bye.
Bye.